My sister milked our parents dry for her boyfriend. She thought no one would find out until her creditors came knocking on our door. And that was just the first call. All right, let's kick this off with a bang. I'm Alex, 23 years old, and let me tell you, if I had known my life was going to turn into a full-blown soap opera starring my 19-year-old sister Cassie, I would have packed my bags and vanished months ago. Seriously, I thought the worst thing I'd have to deal with was my student loan payments, not this level of family disaster. So, let's talk about Cassie. She's one of those I'm so different types who spent half of high school in her own little world, doodling in her notebooks and watching indie movies no one's ever heard of. Then, out of nowhere, this guy Dylan rolls into her life. Picture the absolute worst kind of boyfriend a girl could pick. Greasy hair, covered in tattoos, that I'll be a rock star one day. Look in his eyes. Spoiler alert, he has the musical talent of a brick, but hey, that never stopped him. And for whatever godforsaken reason, Cassie's obsessed with him. One morning I hear her slamming doors, talking on the phone like she's plotting a prison break. So I knock on her door, and she's standing there with this massive suitcase, throwing clothes into it like she's on some speed packing mission. She turns, looks at me, and says, "I'm leaving, Alex. I'm finally getting out of this hellhole." Now, don't get me wrong, I get it. Home isn't exactly Disneyland. But hellhole? Give me a break. We have a pool, Cassie. Anyway, I asked her where she thought she was going, and she just rolled her eyes, saying, "With Dylan. He's got it all planned out. We're going to move in together, start fresh, live our lives without anyone telling us what to do." Yeah, sure, Cassie. Nothing says bright future like playing house with a guy whose idea of a long-term plan is deciding which band t-shirt to wear tomorrow. I should have walked away right there, but I couldn't help myself. "So, let me get this straight," I said. "You're throwing away your life, college, family, whatever future you have, just to run off with a dude who can barely afford his own ramen?" Cassie didn't even blink. She just grinned and shrugged like she was in some cheesy romance movie. "You wouldn't understand, Alex. Dylan and I are meant to be." And that was it. She dragged her suitcase down the stairs, threw one last pitying look at us, like we were the ones missing out, and walked right out of the house. Later that day, Mom and Dad were doing their usual evening routine when I broke the news. "By the way, Cassie's gone. Moved in with Dylan," I said casually, thinking they'd laugh it off or maybe even celebrate. But instead, Mom dropped her wine glass like I'd told her. Cassie joined a cult or something. Dad went pale. They tried calling her, obviously, but she wasn't answering. And then it hit them. Their little angel had flown the coop for real. Dad tried to keep his cool, but Mom was pacing like a madwoman, muttering, "How could she? After everything we've done for her." They were in full panic mode, and meanwhile, I'm sitting there wondering how on earth they didn't see this coming. I mean, Dylan's been hanging around for months, stinking up the place with his bad boy act, and Cassie's been sneaking out every chance she got. It was like watching on a slow-motion car crash. You see it happening, but there's nothing you can do to stop it. Anyway, I thought maybe that'd be the end of it. Cassie would play house with Dylan for a week, realize she made a huge mistake, and come crawling back, right? Little did I know that was just the beginning of the real nightmare. All right, so a couple of weeks after Cassie's great escape, I thought she'd cool off and come crawling back. Yeah, wishful thinking. One morning, I wake up to my mom screaming bloody murder from the kitchen. I figured she'd just spilled coffee, but nope. I walk in, and she's clutching her phone like it's cursed, while my dad's standing there, looking like he forgot how to breathe. Then she drops the bomb. "Our money is gone." Turns out someone drained their account. Every single penny. And let's be real, Sherlock Holmes wasn't needed to crack this one. Cassie was written all over it. She'd sweet-talked her way into getting access to their account for emergencies. Yeah, right. By emergencies, she meant funding her freeloading rock star wannabe, Dylan. Mom couldn't accept it, of course. "Maybe she really needed it for something important," she whispered, looking like Cassie was out saving the world instead of blowing money on a loser. While my parents were having a meltdown, I went into detective mode, Checked her social media, and bingo. There they were, pictures of Cassie and Dylan, holding hands, eating cheap ramen, and showing off a giant new flat-screen TV in the background. Couldn't afford food, but sure, let's buy a huge TV. Genius. And that's when it hit me. If they were already blowing through my parents' money this fast, the real financial disaster was just getting started. This was just the warm-up round. All right, so Cassie's gone rogue, burning through my parents' savings like it's Monopoly money. But of course, that's not enough for her. She's got a new plan. One night, I hear her on the phone with Dylan, whispering like she's scheming some big con. Don't worry, babe. They're clueless. I'll just keep asking for more, make them feel guilty. I'm still their baby girl. She's practically smirking through the phone. I can't believe it. She's going to milk them dry. The next morning, she comes downstairs looking like she hasn't slept, eyes all puffy. Cue the Academy Award performance. Mom, Dad, she sniffles. It's just so much harder than I thought. A couple of fake tears, and bam, Dad's handing her cash. I'm watching, thinking, are they really falling for this? That's must for this. As she heads out, she gives me this smug little look, like she knows I'm onto her, but couldn't care less. And the best part? Mom turns to me saying, she's just struggling. She'll find her way. Yeah, right. Her way to drain them dry, all right, comma, so Cassie's back, making surprise guest appearances every now and then, like she's some kind of tragic hero. She's perfected the act at this point, looking all sad and worn down, like life's been rough on her. And honestly, it's almost impressive how committed she is to the role. One evening she strolls in unannounced, dragging her feet, hair a mess, like she just crawled out of a dumpster. Mom, of course, practically throws herself at Cassie the second she walks in. Sweetheart, you look exhausted. Are you okay? And Cassie, with this pathetic little smile, just says, it's been hard. Oh, here we go. She launches into this long, drawn-out sob story about how nothing is going right and how nobody warned her it'd be like this. She's dropping lines like, I'm barely getting by, and I feel so lost, while throwing in these perfectly timed sniffles. She's acting like she's scraping by on the streets when, let's be real, she's probably spending their money on takeout and cheap wine with Dylan. Dad, predictably, buys every word. He's nodding along, throwing out lines like, you know we're here for you, honey, and don't be afraid to ask us for help. Meanwhile, I'm sitting there watching this horror show unfold, thinking, are you guys really that dense? Just as I'm about to snap, Cassie hits them with the grand finale. She dabs at her eyes, sighs dramatically, and says, I just need, I don't know, maybe a little bit of help to get me through the month. I almost spit out my drink. A little bit of help? That's her subtle way of saying, hand over the cash. Mom and Dad fall for it, hook, line, and sinker. Mom reaches for her purse, and Dad's digging out his wallet, just shoveling bills at her like it's no big deal. Cassie gives them this angelic, grateful smile and says, thank you both so much, in this whispery, dramatic voice. The second she steps out the door, I can practically see her smirk. As soon as she's gone, I can't hold it in anymore. You guys realize she's totally playing you, right? They look at me like I just insulted the queen. Mom's like, she's our daughter, Alex. She's going through a rough patch. Right. A rough patch that involves 0 job applications and endless sob stories. Dad tries to look all wise, saying, we're just giving her a little push until she finds her footing. I want to laugh. Her footing? I say. The only thing she's finding is new ways to bleed you dry. But they won't hear it. They're stuck in their little fantasy where Cassie is the poor lost soul, just struggling to make it in the big bad world. Meanwhile, I'm left watching the slow-motion train wreck that is Cassie's journey to independence. And trust me, this was only the warm-up act all right, comma, so things are rolling along in our new normal of Cassie dropping by, milking my parents dry, then disappearing like a budget Houdini. But, naturally, things take a turn for the weirder. One evening, there's a knock on the door. I'm thinking it's probably some poor delivery guy with the wrong address, but then I hear this guy say, is Cassie here? She owes me money. I nearly choke. This isn't some friend or neighbor. This guy's got shady written all over him. Greasy hair, leather jacket, and an attitude like he'd just lost his last dollar at the slot machine. Mom and Dad look at him like he's speaking another language, completely lost, but I've already connected the dots. Cassie owes him money. Before Mom can say anything, the guy starts talking. "Listen," he says, clearly irritated. "She promised she'd pay me back by now. I helped her out, got her some cash for whatever she needed, and she's ghosting me." I can see Mom's face go white as a sheet, and Dad's jaw drops. But me? I'm biting my lip, trying not to laugh. This is peak Cassie. Mom, trying to save face, stammers, "I'm sorry, but we weren't aware of any loan." The guy rolls his eyes, crossing his arms. "She didn't tell you? Figures." He shakes his head. "Look, I don't care who pays me, but I want my money back. She said she was good for it, and I've been nice, but now I want it back. Got it?" At this point, I can't resist. I step up and, with the biggest grin, say, "So, let me get this straight. Cassie took out a loan, didn't pay you, and you thought knocking on her parents' door was the best way to get it back?" The guy glares at me, but I'm not done. "She didn't even tell them, man. And guess what? She's got no money to pay you either." Mom shoots me a look like I'm about to get grounded. Right, like that would work now. And Dad tries to calm things down, pulling out his checkbook, ready to throw more money at the problem. "Let's just settle this and move on," he mutters, scribbling away. "This family, I swear." So, while Dad's doing his best to buy Cassie's latest mess off our doorstep, the guy just smirks. "Yeah, that's right. She said if she didn't pay up, I could just come here." He chuckles like it's all some hilarious joke. And honestly, it kind of is. Cassie's got my parents so wrapped around her finger, she's practically sending debt collectors to their house like it's part of her grand plan. Once the guy's finally gone with his check in hand, Mom and Dad turn to me, looking both embarrassed and horrified, and I just shake my head, laying it out for them. "You do realize she's using you, right? That she's out there digging herself deeper into debt while you keep bailing her out?" Mom tries to keep it together, going on about family loyalty and how Cassie's just having a hard time. Dad mumbles something about giving her another chance. Yeah, sure. They're so blind to her game, it's almost laughable. But here's the best part. Cassie didn't even bother telling them about the debt. Nope. She just let them get ambushed by a guy who probably has more enemies than friends. I mean, this is getting out of control, and they're the only ones who don't see it. I know now, without a doubt, Cassie's only just getting started. Alright, comma. I've watched Cassie play her little con artist routine long enough. By now, it's obvious. She's got my parents wrapped around her finger, practically ready to mortgage the house if she asked. And you know what? I'm done sitting back and letting her get away with this. So, I decide it's time for a little counterattack of my own. Step 1. I hire a detective. Yeah, maybe it sounds a bit extra, but after all the mess she's caused, I figure it's time someone dug into what she's really been up to. So I get this guy. Think trench coat, coffee-stained teeth, and the kind of vibe that says, "I've seen some shit." Perfect. The guy starts digging, and oh man, the stuff he finds, pure gold. Turns out Cassie's been busy. Not only has she maxed out Mom and Dad's emergency credit cards, but she's also got a couple under her own name that she's blown through on who knows what. Clothes, concert tickets, maybe a private jet for Dylan. At this point, who knows? But here's the kicker. While our detective is unearthing her mountain of debt, I decide to confront the other half of this mess, Dylan himself. I track down his number, thank you, Facebook snooping, and I give him a call. He answers with his usual cool guy attitude, like he's too busy to even be on the phone. "What's up, man?" he says, sounding like he just woke up. "Oh, nothing much," I start, all casual. "Just calling to see if you're aware that my sister has been blowing through our parents' life savings. You good with that, or—" There's a long pause. Then he laughs, like actually laughs. "Dude, it's not my problem," he says. "Cassie's her own person. She knows what she's doing." I can't help but laugh back. "Really? Because from here, it looks like she's on a one-way ticket to Brokeville, and you're the co-pilot." He scoffs, like I'm the one who doesn't get it. "Look, man, your family's got money, right? So what's the big deal?" Oh, that's rich. He thinks we're some kind of bottomless ATM. Typical. But the best part? He's totally out. He doesn't care about Cassie, her problems, or how she's destroying her family. It's all just a game to him. So I decide to drop a little bombshell on him. Well, enjoy it while it lasts, Dylan, because my parents are cutting her off. No more cash, no more handouts. Total bluff, by the way, but hey, why not add some spice to the situation? He stammers a bit, clearly caught off guard, and then mumbles, "Yeah, whatever, man," before hanging up. And that's when I realize he's going to dump her the second he figures out the gravy train's dried up. Later, I fill in my parents on some of what I found. Not everything, just enough to shake them up a bit. Mom, Dad, did you know Cassie has maxed out every card you gave her? Like, we're talking all the money gone. Mom looks like she's just seen a ghost, and Dad starts mumbling about responsibility and consequences. Finally, maybe reality is starting to sink in. Of course, Mom still tries to defend her. Maybe she just got in over her head, Alex. She's young. She'll learn. But I cut her off. Learn? Mom, she's learning that she can do whatever she wants, and you'll bail her out. She's using you. I don't sugarcoat it, because they need to hear it straight. And that's when Dad, finally seeing some sense, says, "We need to talk to her. She can't keep doing this." About time, Dad. So now the cards are on the table. Cassie's secrets, her mountain of debt, her freeloading boyfriend. All of it's about to come crashing down on her. And honestly, I'm just here for the show dot, so, Cassie must have felt the heat because she shows up unannounced one night, looking like she's been run over by a truck. Dark circles, messy hair, that please pity me vibe cranked up to 11. I almost feel bad for her. Almost. The second she walks in, she starts with the dramatics. "Mom, Dad, I made some mistakes," she says, voice all shaky like she's in a bad soap opera. She's laying it on thick, big eyes, trembling lip, the whole sob story package. Mom's already tearing up, and Dad's trying to look all stern, but I can see he's wavering. And then she drops the bomb. "I'm in trouble. I owe people money, and they're threatening me." She glances at me, probably expecting some sympathy, but all she gets is an eyebrow raise. "You did this to yourself, Cass." Mom's practically clinging to her, saying, "We'll figure it out, sweetheart." And Dad sighs, muttering, "We'll take care of it." Classic. I can't believe they're actually going to bail her out again. I jump in, because someone has to be the voice of reason here. "Really? You're going to dig her out of another hole? She needs to face some consequences." Cassie glares at me. All I thought we were family, but I don't care. Family doesn't mean funding your every screw-up. I snap back. She tries to argue, throwing a tantrum about how life's just been so unfair, but I've heard enough. Dad finally cuts in. "Cassie, we're done. No more money, no more excuses. You have to fix this yourself." For once, he actually sounds serious. Cassie's face drops. She wasn't expecting them to finally grow a backbone. She tries one last pity card, looking at Mom, practically begging, but Mom just shakes her head, and I can see it hit Cassie that the game's over. She stands there, stunned, before storming out without another word. And just like that, Cassie's little empire of manipulation crumbles. Honestly, I'm just surprised it took this long. Cassie's meltdown wasn't the end. It was just the start of the real chaos. After storming out, she tried one last Hail Mary. She called up everyone in the family, spinning this sob story about how we'd abandoned her. She wanted sympathy, maybe even a bit of cash. But guess what? Nobody bought it. The whole family was finally on to her. A week later, news started to spread. Turns out Cassie had racked up more debts than we'd even imagined. Credit cards, personal loans, even borrowing from some sketchy friends of Dylan's. She was completely cornered. And Mr. Rockstar? He ghosted her the second he realized the money well was dry. Shocker. Meanwhile, Mom and Dad went through this roller coaster of emotions. Anger, shame, disbelief. They couldn't believe their little girl had sunk this low, but honestly, it was like watching reality smack them in the face. Finally. And me? I was just enjoying the show. Watching Cassie try to claw her way out of the mess she'd created was almost satisfying. She'd burned every bridge, and now she had nowhere to go. The family wasn't budging, Dylan was history, and all her grand plans had blown up in her face. In the end, Cassie had to move back home. But this time it was strictly no perks, no handouts, no excuses, no pity. She was forced to get a job, pay off her debts, and for once deal with the consequences of her own disaster. Lesson learned? Mess around with family, and eventually it'll all come back to bite you. Hard.